شفاعته اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد سعة الشجر نطق الحجر شق القمر بإشارته اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد جبريل أتى ليلة أسرى والرب دعا لحضرته اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد فمحمدنا هو سيدنا والعز لنا بإجابته اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله ما شاء الله جزاكم الله.
Jazakumullah khair to Maulana Abdullah, Maulana Abdul Rahman, two of the graduating students today, as well as Hafez Akasha, Hafez Khuzaima. All of them are the sons of Sheikh Maulana Amirun, the Imam of Al-Hidayah Center, and one of our Masajid and Rasa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase them. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. We also take the opportunity to officially once again welcome Sheikh Abbas, and in particular Maulana Abdul Raheem Sahib, who has traveled all the way from the freezing cold weather in the UK and we brought you to the nice warm weather of Perth. We're really apologetic for that, Maulana Jazakumullah khair, that has been struggling with jet lag since he got here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him and all his sacrifices. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. As we continue, inshallah, for those who have arrived later, the theme that we have for today is about Sham and the focus on Sham and the focus of Baytul Muqaddas. Nabi alayhi salatu was salam, during the conquest that took place in the time of Nabi alayhi salam, we know that from the first major conquest and battles and engagement was the Battle of Badr, and subsequently in the third year of Hijrah was the Battle of Uhud, the defense of Medina, and there were several engagements that took place beyond that. One of those was in the 5th year, the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Trench, where Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where the Quraysh had decided to avenge all of the previous defeats. They had come into cohort with the Yahud and the Jews of Medina, and the Jewish tribes had occupied the northeastern part. All of their forts and residences were there. Medina was surrounded on one side with the Jews, and on the southern side, the attempt by the Quraysh to infiltrate Medina. Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam discussed with Sahaba, Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Persian Sahabi. He advised Nabi alayhi salam to dig a trench, and it will be a means of defending Medina Munawwara. This trench where some 3,000 Sahaba were present, and the trench was dug over a period, according to some narrations, 7 days and even longer. During the period of the digging of this trench, some riwayat say up to 1 month, Nabi alayhi salam was called by Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu that, O Nabi of Allah, we've encountered a big rock and a boulder that we are unable to shatter. Nabi alayhi salam came there, فَأَخَذَ الْمِعْوَلِ. He took the axe and he struck the rock once. And as Nabi alayhi salam struck the rock, he read the ayat, وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا لَا مُبَدِّلَ لِكَلِمَاتِهِ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. That indeed the statement, the decision of Allah, it is final, it is just, and it is true. And the decree, the statement, the intent of Allah will never change. Allah is all hearing and Allah is all knowledgeable. Nabi alayhi salam struck it once, sparks flew out, the rock shattered. Again Nabi alayhi salam struck, the same thing transpired, the same verses were recited. The third time, the same thing transpired. Nabi alayhi salam shattered the rock, he went to one side. Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu came, he said, O Nabi of Allah, I seen something amazing today, that as you struck the rock, there was a lightning, a strike and sparks which shot off this. Nabi alayhi salam said, Salman, were you so observant? Did you see this? He said, yes, I did. Nabi alayhi salam said, Salman, that when I struck the rock the first time, Jibreel came to me, or Allah showed and I was told at this time that the entirety of Kisra, the entirety of the Persian Empire was made visual to me. Salman Farsi and Sahaba said that, O Nabi of Allah, make dua to Allah that Allah give us conquest over the Persian Empire. Nabi alayhi salam said that Allah has gifted you this, that you will conquer Persia and the surrounding lands. O Nabi of Allah, what about the second rock? That Allah opened to me, the Byzantine, the Roman Empire, Allah opened this to me. And when I struck it, Allah showed it to me. Salman Farsi and Sahaba said that, O Nabi of Allah, that make dua that Allah give us conquest over the lands of Sham. The Byzantine Empire was stretched from modern day mid-Jordan right up till Constantinople and into Europe. That, O Nabi of Allah, make dua that Allah give us conquest. Nabi alayhi salam said that Allah will give you conquest of this. What about the third strike? Make dua that Allah give us conquest over Habasha. Nabi alayhi salam said, Da'u al-Habasha hatta yada'ukum. Until they leave you, you leave them and you don't get into battle with them. And do the same with the Turk and the Turks. They do the same, don't engage in battle unless and until they attack you. This matter, Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu, in the 5th year, Nabi alayhi salam gives this glad tidings way after the verses of Alif Lam Mim Ghulibatir Rum. Sahaba astonished, they stand in the trenches of Medina. The impossible is being told to them. That on one hand, as an ummah, you are in defensive mode. You are trying just to defend where you are, and you are being told about conquering the world powers. Nabi alayhi salam is standing in the trench and he gives them glad tidings to remind us that no matter the circumstance, Allah's nusra and help is always with them. And no sooner did this transpire in the 8th year of Hijrah, the battle of Muta unfolds. Nabi alayhi salam for the first time sends Sahaba north. They go into literally the periphery of Palestine. In the battle of Muta, Ja'far bin Abi Talib, Zayd bin Haritha, Abdullah bin Rawaha, these Sahaba are made shaheed and they are martyred. On the hands of Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, his battle of prowess and his victory is in the battle of Muta. He comes back to Medina, glad tidings, O Nabi of Allah, that we were victorious in Muta. After that, in the 9th year of Hijri, the last expedition of Nabi alayhi salam, the only time where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam goes north on the news that the army of Hercules and Herakl are coming down, Nabi alayhi salam sets off with Sahaba. And Allah in Surah Tawbah describes the difficulty of this journey, the arduous nature of this journey. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Sahaba, they get to Tabuk in the 9th year of Hijrah. When they get to Tabuk, by then, Herakl and his army had turned back out of the fear of Sahaba, out of the fear of the coming of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm just setting the tone, I'm just the MC. I'm setting the tone for what inshallah is our theme for the day. When Nabi alayhi salam returns from Tabuk, the Arabs in Abu Bakr arrives. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, one of the most decisive battles in the annals of the history of Islam. Two of them took place on the borders of Palestine. One of these was the Battle of Yarmouk during the Arab Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, which was a great victory the first time infiltration started taking place into Sham, into the northern territories, and on the demise of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. The platform was laid for now further conquest. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu then deputes all of the armies to the different cities of Sham. Damascus is conquered, Halab is conquered, Hama is conquered, all the major Sham cities, and by the same Sahaba who are present in Badr, who are present in Uhud, the likes of Usama bin Zayd are the leaders of these armies, and they conquering one battle after the other, until finally the decision of Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah radiallahu anhu, Aminu hadhihi al-ummah. The news comes that now shall we infiltrate, do we need to penetrate Jerusalem, Baytul Muqaddas. The ijazah and permission comes from Medina Munawwara, that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu gives permission that now finally Baytul Muqaddas can be conquered. And for that, inshallah, we call upon to elaborate further on this in Arabic, one of our graduating students, Maulana Abdullah Saeed, inshallah, who will be talking about the era of or the period of the conquest of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, the entry of Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum into Baytul Muqaddas.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات وبفضله تضاء القلوب بنور العلم والهداية، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له شهادة نرجو بها رضا الرحمن والنجاة يوم الميعاد، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من أمة الإسلام وشرفنا باتباع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. فيا أحبة، حديثنا اليوم عن صفحة مشرقة من بلاد الشام وتاريخه. فتح بيت المقدس، تلك الأرض التي بارك الله فيها وحولها. بيت المقدس ليست بمجرد بقعة جغرافية، هي تاريخ وعقيدة ووصية ربانية. بيت المقدس هو ثالث الحرمين، وهو المكان الذي أسري بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قبل أن يعرج إلى السماء. قال الله عز وجل: سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله. أي بارك الله حوله بأنواع البركات الحسية والمعنوية، بالثمار والأنهار التي خص الله بها بلاد الشام، وبكونه مقر الأنبياء ومهبط الملائكة الأطهار. وجاء في الحديث الشريف قول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى 3 مساجد: المسجد الحرام، ومسجد الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم، والمسجد الأقصى. وهذا يدل على أهمية مسجد الأقصى وفضله العظيم. وقبل أن نصل إلى فتح بيت المقدس نعود قليلا إلى الوراء. بيت المقدس كانت تحت حكم الإمبراطورية البيزنطية، وكانت مدينة بيت المقدس مقدسة عند اليهود والنصارى، ومكانتها أيضا عظيمة في الإسلام. بل كانت قبلة الأولى للمسلمين قبل أن يأمرهم الله بالتحول إلى الكعبة المشرفة. وعندما بدأ الإسلام يتوسع أصبح الشام هدفاً أساسياً للمسلمين، ليس فقط لفتح الأرض بل لنشر العدل والإيمان. فبدأت فتوحات الشام في عهد أبي بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه، واستمرت في عهد عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه، وكان قائد الجيش أبو عبيدة بن الجراح رضي الله عنه، ومعه قادة عظام كخالد بن الوليد رضي الله عنه وعمرو بن العاص رضي الله عنه. وعندما وصل الصحابة والمسلمون إلى أسوار بيت المقدس حاصروها، والحصار كان طويلا، لكن أهل هذه المدينة اشترطوا أن يسلموا مفاتيحها لعمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه بنفسه، لأنه هو أمير المؤمنين، هو الخليفة. فوصل هذا الخبر إلى المدينة المنورة، فسمعها عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه وخرج إلى الشام وترك مدينة المنورة. كيف يذهب؟ كان معه خادمه وجمل واحد. هذا عمر بن الخطاب أمير المؤمنين الخليفة، ومعه شيئا فقط، خادمه وجمل واحد. وكان يتبادلان الركوب على الجمل، مرة عمر رضي الله عنه يركب ومرة الخادم يركب. وعندما اقتربوا من بيت المقدس كان الدور على الخادم ليركب الجمل، وبينما عمر رضي الله عنه يمشي على قدميه ممسكا بخطام الجمل، والجنود ومسؤولون الرومان كانوا ينتظرون وصول الخليفة، يتخيلون حاكما عظيما محاطا بالخدام والجنود بثياب فاخرة، لكنهم رأوا عمر رضي الله عنه رجلا بسيطا في ثوب فيه رقع كثيرة، يمشي بتواضع وهيبة. وعندما دخل عمر رضي الله عنه بيت المقدس دخلها بتواضع وإيمان عميق. وبعد ذلك كتب عمر رضي الله عنه وثيقة عظيمة تعرف بالعهدة العمرية، ومنح فيها الأمانة للنصارى في المدينة، وضمن لهم حماية كنائسهم وأماكن عبادتهم. ثم توجه عمر رضي الله عنه إلى المكان الذي عرف لاحقا بالمسجد الأقصى، ولكن وجد المكان مهملا مليئا بالوسيخ، فأخذ عمر رضي الله عنه بنفسه ينظفه، ثم صلى فيه وأمر بإعادة بنائه ليصبح مكانا للعبادة. فيا أحبة، المسجد الأقصى ليس مجرد بناء، بل هو جزء من عقيدتنا والقبلة الأولى، وهو مسرى نبينا صلى الله عليه وسلم. وفتح بيت المقدس لم يكن مجرد نصر عسكري، بل كان تجديدا لعهد الأمة مع الله. وأختم حديثي بكلمة عظيمة لعمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه في خطبته الشهيرة لما قال: نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام، فإن ابتغينا العزة بغيره أذلنا الله. نسأل الله العظيم أن يعيدنا العزة بالإسلام، وأن يحفظ بلاد الشام ومسجد الأقصى. اللهم آمين، والحمد لله رب العالمين.
آمين. ما شاء الله، ما شاء الله، جزاك الله.
Jazakumullah khair to Mawlana Abdullah. Once again, we take the opportunity to warmly welcome those who have arrived late. Inshallah, as we have said earlier, that we try to make this a distraction-free day and a gadget-free day, device-free day. So inshallah, let us try to continue with keeping the ambience of the masjid. Amin ya Rabbil Alameen. Mawlana Abdullah spoke about the entry of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu into al-Masjid al-Aqsa. That after al-Masjid al-Aqsa was conquered, we famously know that the key was given and was conditional to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's arrival. At that time, he and his slave, as mentioned, The two of them had come, and there were two of them who only had one conveyance between them, both taking turns. And as they entered into Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa from Jabal Mukabbir, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the one who was harnessing the conveyance, and in that state of humility and humbleness, he came into Masjid Al-Aqsa. And until it was pointed out to him, and where he discovered the exact location as described by Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu fell to his knees and with his own hands, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab, was wiping the dirt and the dust of Masjid Al-Aqsa. Remember this incident clearly, that Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab, on his knees, cleaning Masjid Al-Aqsa, a legacy that he left for the Ummah to come. When Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, the morning that he was about to depart from Masjid Al-Aqsa after the conquest, he made an announcement and he said that Aina Bilal. Hafid ibn Asakir in Tarikh Dimashq has mentioned this. He said that when Sayyidina Umar, when it was the time of Salah, he called that, where's Bilal? Bilal radiallahu anhu, after the demise of Nabi alayhi salam, took permission from Sayyidina Abu Bakr that allow me that I cannot give adhan in Medina, I only want to be in the armies of Sham. And that's where he spent his life, in the armies of Sham. He was present in this army. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, where's Bilal? Call him to give adhan in Masjid Al-Aqsa. The only mu'adhin who gave adhan in Medina, when the conquest of Makkah, Nabi alayhi salam said, Bilal, put your foot on my shoulder, climb on top of the Baytullah and give adhan. And in the premise, in the boundaries of Masjid Al-Aqsa, Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab says, Bilal, that you are the one who is entitled to continue the sunnah, and nobody will be more entitled to give the first adhan in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Bilal radiallahu anhu gives adhan. Sayyidina Umar leads the salah. In the first rak'ah, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-Masjid al-Haram in al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. And in the second rak'ah, وَاذْكُرْ عَبْدَنَا دَاوُودَ, reading the ayat of Surah Sad of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, Dawood alayhi salam, those who laid the foundations of the building of Masjid Al-Aqsa. Can you imagine the words and the voice of Umar ibn al-Khattab reverberating around Masjid Al-Aqsa? Sayyidina Umar finishes Salah, he leaves from there. For 462 uninterrupted years, these lands remain under Muslim control. 462 years later, what begins as Peter the Hermit, that culminated into the Crusades, who brutally entered the lands of Masjid Al-Aqsa, who entered Masjid Al-Aqsa, and in one day on the shores inside of Masjid Al-Aqsa, some 70,000 people are brutally murdered. And so this period of peace is broken with this entry of the Crusades. And it lasts for some 87 years only. Listen to the history carefully. From the conquest, 462 uninterrupted years, 87 inconvenient Crusader years. Then comes along one Yusuf bin Ayyub al-Tikriti, Al-Malik al-Nasir, Salah ad-Din Ayyubi rahimahullah ta'ala. Allah sends him to this ummah. Kana rajulan fa'al la qawwan. He was not a man of this speech. This ummah will be victorious when it comes back to the asr. Salah ad-Din Ayyubi rahimahullah kana rajulan sa'iman qa'iman. He had his own biographer, Bahauddin ibn Shaddad, wrote such a biography of this person, Salahuddin Ayyubi, that if you read it, you will think nothing of an individual was a miracle that Allah sent to this ummah. He was a person who, when the lines were drawn, the sufuf for jihad was drawn for Masjid Al-Aqsa. Just like today, Quran and Hadith will be read. Salah ad-Din Ayyubi rahimahullah would call the ulama, the muhaddithun, and he would instruct them that walk between the sufuf and read Qala Allah and Qala Rasul. Allah's nusrah comes from this. When he conquered Masjid Al-Aqsa, the first halaqat that he established were the halaqat of Hadith Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah ta'ala. And so it remained with an inconvenience of 87 years. Masjid al-Aqsa, Palestine, Sham was back in the control of this ummah. And that continued for a period of time until what happened some very recent years back, historically and politically. And to inform us further about this, inshallah, we call upon two of our graduating students today, Maulana Abdul Rahman Saeed and Maulana Bilal Muhammad, where they will be doing a dialogue in English, inshallah, and just talking about events and bringing it up to the contemporary times.
It's been a while since we last saw each other.
Yeah, it has. What did you think of the talk of Umar and his conquest of Jerusalem?
It's been really interesting to know about some of the major historical events that took place. Like the one you mentioned about Umar radiallahu anhu's conquest of Jerusalem, and about the Crusades, and later on the reconquest. I was wondering what really happened to the land of Palestine, and after all those events.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I've actually been reading a little bit about the history of Palestine, trying to familiarize myself with the topic. And so let's begin where we left off. After the Muslims reconquered Jerusalem, it remained under various Islamic empires, like the Abbasids and Mamluks, and then it was later incorporated into the Ottoman Empire in 1517. The Ottomans ruled over Palestine from 1517 until the end of World War I in 1918. During this time, Palestine experienced a degree of political stability, and Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived there in relative peace. But things started to change at the beginning of World War I, when the Ottoman Empire had sided with Germany and the Central Powers. When they lost the war, the Ottoman territories were divided by the victorious European powers.
So you mentioned that the Ottomans sided with Germany, which they lost. So what happened to their lands?
So the victorious European powers, Britain and France, they, in a secret agreement known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement, in 1916, before the war had even ended, they divided Ottoman territories among themselves to who would control what parts of what land. In that agreement, Britain was to control the eastern part of Palestine, and Jerusalem was to be an international city. What's interesting is that just 1 year later, in 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, promising to establish a national home for Jewish people in Palestine. This led to the British occupation of Palestine, followed by the British mandate of Palestine in 1920.
You mentioned about the British Declaration. That was such a turning point. Was this driven by the European Zionism?
In short, yes. And you can kind of pick that up from the declaration itself. Now, Zionism was a European political movement that was aimed at creating a Jewish homeland. It gained momentum in the late 19th century as Jews began to face persecution in Europe. Leaders like Theodor Herzl wanted to establish a Jewish state, and they saw Palestine, which was still under the Ottoman Empire at that time, as their ideal land. Now, Britain supported the idea to build a national home for Jewish people in Palestine for political reasons. They wanted to gain political influence in the Middle East. However, the declaration completely disregarded the Arab population at the time, which made up over 90% of the population.
It sounds like a recipe for conflict. How did the Palestinians react to this declaration and British control?
Right. Palestinians, they were outraged. They saw the Balfour Declaration as a betrayal of their rights and a threat to their homeland. During the British Mandate from 1920 to 1948, Jewish migration to Palestine increased significantly, supported by Zionist organizations and European funding, also facilitated largely by the British. This migration intensified after the Holocaust, as many Jews sought refuge from Europe. We should note here that in 1935, Jewish migration to Palestine yearly was at 62,000 immigrants per year. Now, the Jewish immigration, the growing Jewish population and political ambitions created tension. The Palestinian farmers were often displaced as Zionist groups purchased land, sometimes from absentee landlords. protests and uprisings became common, culminating in the Palestinian revolt from 1936 to 1939.
So you mentioned about the Palestinian revolt. So what was that all about?
Okay.
Was it just against the Jewish migration?
So in the 1930s, Palestinians rose up against the British rule and growing Zionist movement. They wanted to stop Jewish immigration, prevent land from being sold to Zionist groups, and gain independence. Because what the Zionists would do is, when they purchased land, they wouldn't employ any Palestinians, they wouldn't buy any Palestinian produce, and they would never sell the land back to the Palestinians. So the revolt began in 1936 with a 6-month general strike, followed by 3 years of armed fighting against the British. The revolt costed the Palestinians nearly over 4,000 and nearly 6,000. Also, the war was the dreaded Palestinians was the loss of their leaders. Many of their leaders were on the Jewish side, they faced several hundred losses, but they continued to grow. They even built new settlements during that time.
So by the end of World War II, tensions were already high. So how did things escalate?
So after World War II, the Holocaust created international sympathy for the Jewish survivors, and Zionist pressure for a state in Palestine grew stronger. Britain, then unable to manage the conflict, referred the issue to the UN in 1947. The UN proposed a partition plan, dividing Palestine into 2 states, one for Arabs and one for Jews. The Jews, who were a minority at the time and owned less than 10% of the land, were given 55% of the territory, and the majority of Arab population were given only 45%. And Jerusalem was to be an international city.
That sounds pretty unfair. So, how did both sides react to the proposed partition plan?
The Zionists, they accepted the plan immediately, but with the intention of expanding later on. Palestinians and the surrounding Arab states rejected the plan outright, arguing it was unjust to give more than half of the land to a minority population. And when the British left in 1948, the Zionist leaders declared the state of Israel, and the 1948 Arab-Israeli War broke out.
And that's when the Nakba happened, right?
Yes, the Nakba, meaning the catastrophe. Over 700,000 Palestinians were forcibly and violently expelled from their homes, and over 500 villages were destroyed. By the end of the Nakba, Israel had committed over 30 atrocities, and more than 13,000 Palestinians were killed. After the war was over, Israel had seized 78% of historic Palestine. Gaza was under the control of Egypt, and Jordan had annexed the West Bank.
So what about Jerusalem? It must have been the focal point. All of it.
Absolutely. Jerusalem was divided. West Jerusalem was controlled by Israel, while East Jerusalem, including Masjid al-Aqsa, was under Jordanian rule. However, this changed after the 6-Day War in 1967.
So you mentioned the 6-Day War. So that's when Israel expanded its territory even further, right?
Exactly. In 1967, Israel launched preemptive strikes against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. In just 6 days, they captured Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, the Golan Heights, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. For the first time, Israel controlled all of historic Palestine.
And what were the consequences of this occupation?
Consequences were immense. Israel began building settlements in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights in direct violation of international law. These settlements displaced Palestinians and made the possibility of a future Palestinian state more difficult. Palestinians also faced severe restrictions to movement and access to resources.
And did Egypt and Syria ever try to take back their territories?
Yes, they did. A few years later, in 1973, Egypt and Syria attempted to regain their territories, which were occupied by Israel. This is known as the 1973 Yom Kippur War. It led to the Camp David Accords, which returned the Sinai to Egypt. But for Palestinians, their land remained occupied. Subsequent decades saw the uprising like the First Intifada and the Second Intifada. The Oslo Accords raised some hopes for the Palestinians, but failed to resolve the issues like refugees, settlements, and borders.
It's really interesting to know about the summary and what unfolded in Palestine.
That's right. What we mentioned is just a summary of some of the major events in Palestine. There's a lot more that can still be discussed.
So right now, whatever is happening since October last year. So what is the current situation in Palestine right now?
So I think from last year, October 7th, we've both seen the horrific, heartbreaking figures that have come out of Gaza and the West Bank. The current death toll in Gaza stands at at least 44,000 Palestinians have been killed, more than 100,000 have been injured, and 90% of the population are internally displaced. Their houses, their residents are either bombed or they were forced to flee. They also lack basic necessities like food, clean water, and shelter. In the West Bank, 2023 was already the deadliest year for Palestinians to date. Since 2024 alone, over 700 Palestinians have been killed, 160 or more than 160 of them being children, and over 1,000 structures has been demolished by Israel.
This is really heartbreaking to hear about this death. So what can we do? What is our role as Muslims?
As Muslims, our first point of reference is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and continue to make dua, and to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and istighfar, use Amal, to continue and increase in Amal. Secondly, we should learn about the history of Palestine, educate ourselves, and speak about it with others, and use whatever means that we have available to spread that awareness. The book that you could read is A Brief History of Palestine by Ismail Adam.
Sorry, what was the book you mentioned?
A Brief History of Palestine. I hope it was beneficial to you.
طيب حجال جزاك الله.
Jazakumullah khair to Maulana Bilal and Maulana Abdul lots of facts and figures for very early Sunday morning, but it's the least that we can do, at least to draw some awareness, and more than awareness, to keep our focus on Palestine and to Gaza. Incidentally, Ismail Adam Patel, Maulana Raheem, and are from very close vicinity, in the same city, almost.
Close by.
Ismail Adam Patel, mashallah, is written in English for those who want to resort to English reading. It's a very good book, concise enough, inshallah, that we can build our familiarity. And that was the point of reference for our two ulama for their presentation this morning. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. And reward all of you, inshallah, for coming very early this Sunday morning. May Allah azza wa jalla fill it with barakah and blessing. Amin ya Rabbil Alameen. To move forward very quickly, inshallah. The journey of these students is, of course, one which is primarily their own effort and their own journey. They have put in great, tremendous sacrifice, their asatiza around them, and other role players, like those who are married, their spouses, their children, parents, community, ulama around them, our elders, the dua. Many, many people have supported in various ways, and to give acknowledgement to all of these, inshallah, before we move on to one of our main programs, first up we will call Maulana Arif al-Rahman. He's one of the graduating students today. Inshallah, he will be giving an acknowledgement to all of those who have played a role, inshallah, in their journey to this today and their journey to completion.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear respected guests, our honorable ulama, our teachers, huffaz, elders, and my beloved fellow students and dear community members. First and foremost, I begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, the most kind, the Almighty, for blessing us with the opportunity to learn His deen in this sacred environment and to sit and be in the company of the esteemed teachers of our madrasa. It is only through His mercy and guidance that we are here in the pursuit of His deen. Personally, I have been waiting for this day for the past 7 years. Indeed, this is a day of immense joy and privilege that I stand here in front of you on behalf of my fellow students to express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the esteemed teachers of this madrasa who have been the guiding lights of our lives. As I was saying, that I have been personally waiting for this day for the past 7 years. Not because that I get to finish my course and say goodbye to madrasa. Rather, finally I have got an opportunity to express my gratitude, to say thanks to our beloved teachers who have been supporting us, assisting us, guiding us tirelessly for the past 7 years, and who have changed our lives completely. The madrasa life is strange in a way, and I apologize to use the word strange. Hopefully, when I explain why, you may be able to relate with it. We have spent more than 1,000 days, which is over 5,000 hours, 5 days a week, with our beloved teachers in this madrasa. And we had been benefiting from them on a daily basis. And when I talk about benefiting, I'm not talking about something insignificant. Rather, it was life-changing. They had literally reshaped our character, our morality. They have instilled the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in us. And they have carefully nurtured our spiritual needs over the last 7 years. Yet, we never got an opportunity to say, to tell them that what they really have done for us. We never really got the opportunity to sit with them individually and say what they really meant for us. We never really got the opportunity to hold their hands and say, we love you for the sake of Allah and you mean the world for us. Not that they ever anticipated this from any one of us. In reality, they were far from this. Today, someone drops a pen and if you pick it up for them, they will say thank you 10 times. But our teachers always had this genuine disinterest in hearing anything praiseworthy. If we had said something, they would say straight away, Astaghfirullah. They would seek forgiveness from Allah and they would quickly change the topic. And this is nothing but a clear display of their pure sincerity and humility. But despite the dislike and disapproval of hearing the words of gratitude, we would take this opportunity to thank them from the bottom of our hearts. Because if we don't thank them, indeed we have not thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, "La yashkurullaha man la yashkurun nas," that he who does not thank people is not thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if this is the case for ordinary people, then this is more appropriate. This is only more appropriate for those who have connected us, the creation, with Allah, the Creator, who have brought us from the darkness to the light. Your respected teachers, you embody the values of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Your efforts reminds us the legacy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the greatest teacher of all the time. Through your patience, your dedication, and love for imparting knowledge, you have nurtured not only our minds, but also our hearts and our souls. Teaching has never been a job for you. Rather, it has been a religious obligation, and you have fulfilled every right of it. Your dedication and passion to teaching has been life-changing for us. Your lessons and advices are priceless treasures that will guide us throughout our lives, inshallah. And what can I say about their sacrifices? We don't even know the tip of the iceberg. So many times we came late to the classes, and we will see this should be on different occasions. Our other teachers will be sitting and waiting for us in the class. We missed classes for the smallest of the reasons. But some of the Shabir, days after days, you would continue to teach us while being sick. You would come back after a long journey, after taking a long flight. The next day you will be coming to the class to teach us jet lag. Same with Maulana Safwan. I've seen him teaching us with severe headache. You would come back from a long journey, and then the next day, jet lag, teach us. Maulana Amirul travels 1 hour every day from Wanga to here to teach us. And when he would get sick, he would teach us online. Mufti Usman would patiently answer our endless fiqh questions. He would answer a question in a way as if this was the first time we have asked this question. However, we have probably asked the same question multiple times in the past, but due to our own weakness and forgetfulness, we forgot the answer. Maulana Shakib used to travel all the way from Perth City to teach us despite being busy with 100 other things. Maulana Wasim's easygoing and empathetic nature attracts the hearts of the students. Sheikh Muaz, although he's not here with us today, but he was known for his amazing, easygoing and calm nature. Many people had asked me, how have I managed to continue to study for 7 years? The secret is, of course, with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the influence, the humility, the kindness, and the charismatic characteristics of our beloved teachers. Just how by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given a kind heart to be gentle, to deal while dealing with the Sahaba. Our teachers also had hearts that made them caring, compassionate, understanding, and forgiving towards us. We have found every single teacher of us more than 100% when it came to practicing on the hadith ad-deenun nasiha, that religion is sincere advice. Whenever we went to seek advice from Mufti Shabir, Maulana Safwan, Mufti Usman, Maulana Amirul, whether it is a family issue or work-related issue or a spiritual issue, our problems became their problems. and they would take us under their wings and would advise us with the true sincerity without being judgmental. And we are forever indebted to them for this support. In a time when a person thinks twice before sharing their own personal issues to their own friends, to their own family members, to their own relatives, we never hesitated once to seek advice from our beloved teachers. And every time we get advice from them, we would leave with a peace of mind. They would reassure us things will get right. Everything will be fine. We are there for you. On behalf of all my fellow students, I would like to apologize to all of our teachers for not being able to meet their expectations in many aspects. We apologize for not being able to do khidmah the way they deserve. We apologize for not being able to show the respect they deserve. And we apologize for unintentionally or unknowingly to say or do things that might have hurt them. We also apologize to the families of our teachers for every single time we held them back for our personal issues and questions which eventually shortened their family time. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to everyone in the Masjid committee who work hard behind the scenes and often go underappreciated, who make sure the Masjid operations go smoothly and we enjoy the facility properly and uninterruptedly. We would also like to extend our gratitude on behalf of Maulana Hafiz Bilal to his parents, and on behalf of Maulana Abdullah and Maulana Abdul Rahman to their parents, Maulana Amirul, for their countless sacrifices and continuous dua to ensure that they could continue their pursuit of knowledge of the Deen and be where they are today. I personally would like to thank my wife and my kids for their continuous support and countless sacrifices through this journey. Without their support, it would have been impossible for me to be where I am today. Finally, as students, we may not be able to repay our teachers for all that they have done for us. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless them abundantly, both in this world and the hereafter.
Amen.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase them in their knowledge, grant them barakah in their wealth, in their health, family and time, and reward them with the highest rank in Jannatul Firdaus. And last but not the least, we ask our respected teachers, our guests, the ulama, and everyone who are present here to make dua for us so that we can also walk on the footsteps of our teachers, serve the community in every way possible, and continue to grow and work on the path of righteousness and seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all that we do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this madrasa, our teachers, and all of us who have gathered here to witness this auspicious day. Wa akhiru da'wana, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Well done.
Jazakumullah khair to Maulana Arif. It's a bit difficult to stand here. I think one of the acknowledgements that we'd like to make, and this is just for my own side, I have not seen people in this day and age, my dear brothers, friends and sisters, for young people and older people to make a sacrifice in this land to unwaveringly come in and day out, continuously for 7 years. That is one of the karamat of this earth. I mention this every time we stand here. We have graduating students of different forms, that the unwavering sacrifice that I have personally seen and learned from those who study here, I rarely see it elsewhere in the world. To become a talibul ilm in a Western country like this, where everything is not conducive, everything is against you, the world is just pulling you in one direction, and then to become focused and zoned in, day out, just to be present, to continuously study, it is nothing short of the great miracles of this time. And we should acknowledge the effort of these tulab, whoever, wherever they are, those who are graduating, those who have, and wherever students give their time for deen, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase them, and may Allah azza wa jalla accept their efforts and their sacrifices. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. One of the ulama, Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah, Hafidh ibn Asakir rahimahullah is mentioned. I quoted earlier from Tariq al-Dimashq. He said that he narrated from one of his teachers, Walid bin Muslim rahimahullah. He said that I had seen Ashrat Alaf, many tens of thousands of Sahaba, those who their eyes set and fixated on Nabi alayhi salam, that they had settled in Damascus and in the lands of Sham. One of those was Abu Darda radiallahu anhu. Just leading up to our next presentation, Abu Darda radiallahu anhu was known as Hakim Hadihi al-Ummah, the Hakim and the wise person of this Ummah. It was a title that Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu had given to him, that he is the Hakim of this Ummah. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu was sent by Sayyidina Umar. He was the Qari, the Muqri of Damascus. He would teach Quran in Jami'ah Dimashq. He told one of his students, Ibn Asakir mentioned, that he said one day, Abu Darda radiallahu anhu told him, that just count that how many people are present, how many halaqat of Quran do we have in the masjid. He said that I counted with the naked eye 1,600 people sitting in groups of 10, where one person was an ustad and a teacher. And like that, there were 160 classes that were present in Jamia Dimashq, all of them overseen by Abu Darda radiallahu ta'ala. He would walk around and he would observe. And each teacher, he would take a report of what Quran is being taught. That's why from the great narrations and the Qur'an of the Sab'a Qira'at is Ibn Amir. He was Dimashqi. And his narration leads up to Abu Darda radiallahu anhu in some asanid. But nonetheless, Damascus was a place of Quran. Sham was a place of Quran. And he came from the places of Sham. Next up, inshallah, we have Hafiz Usaid, inshallah, who will be completing his Hifz al-Quran. And he will be reading his last dars. We request Sheikh Abbas, inshallah, to his come forward, as well as Mufti Uthman and Qari Safwan, inshallah, who Hafiz Usaid has read and studied by both of them. Hafiz Usaid, inshallah, you can please come forward. And I also want to request Professor Dr. Adil, who is the father of Hafiz Usaid, to please come forward, inshallah. Dr. Adil, so this is a testimony that deen and dunya can go together. For those who are not, and the reason I'm calling Dr. Professor Adil up in front is because on the day of Qiyamah, parents will be called. When their sons are Hafiz and their daughters are Huffaz, they will be called by their father's name, and their fathers will be praised. If Allah praises them in Qiyamah, we should honor them here. So Dr. Saab, Professor Saab is a lecturer in Creative University, and Hafiz Adil, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. صدق الله العظيم.
ما شاء الله. بسم الله.
إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى. وقال جل جلاله لئن شكرتم لأزيدنكم ولئن كفرتم إن عذابي شديد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Respected ulama kiram, father kiram, elders, friends and brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please excuse me for my emotional condition as I sit here in front of you. few weeks in this country and see one manifestation of one other Hafiz in this country in the form of another seed that Alhamdulillah that has grown. My heart fills with these are years of happiness, joy, and gratitude and shukran to Allah Ta'ala. What I saw in 1980 when I became associated with this beautiful country down under Australia and started a mission at a later stage from then onwards. And what I'm seeing now in 2024, in this last month I've done a lot of traveling from mid-Australia, from Victoria to the east, to Sydney, and to here I'm sitting there in the western end of Australia in Perth, which was my home for a good 6-7 years. And Alhamdulillah, the development that has taken place generally throughout Australia, from the Ummah point of view, from the Dini point of view, was something I make shukr to Allah. I've given me long enough life. Not everybody lives long enough to see the growth of their children or the success of their children for which they work so hard. Allah calls them up before them. And not every spiritual or every religious star and teacher and model lives long enough to see the fruits of his labor and the progress that he has, or the time he has invested to see where it has reached. I make shukr to Allah, one of those few people whom Allah is still blessed to come back to Australia again and again and see the progress of this continent and the Ummah in this part of this world. And Alhamdulillah, I just wish to take you to a very brief synopsis, historical synopsis of this. Not the history of 400 years when Muslims came and said, no, there's enough books of history written for you to read it and know how Islam got introduced in this country and how the Mazhab developed. Some of them are still there as a reminder to the existence and presence of the Muslims that fought. And in that time, 200 years ago. I just want to take you back to about from 1980, about over 40 years now. And then, as I look at this beautiful country and the development of this country from the Ummah point of view, how you have progressed and how you have gone forward in the sense of a very vibrant community. I used to stay in the Perth Masjid there and look at the condition. There was no madrasa. Once a week, people used to bring their children on a weekend or one day of the weekend. Some kind-hearted person was a bit more knowledgeable. There were no scholars around, and they would volunteer their services to teach. I was wondering, yeah, like 200 years, those Muslims that passed on, there's no traces of them except in the cemeteries of Kalburi and Kulgadi and Ellis-Springs. So their names are there, nothing with regard to their descendants. This is the condition once a week of a madrasa. For 100 years from now, will these people will come and settle down in this beautiful country for prosperity and for greener pastures and to get a better standard of life here? Will they be able to stay on and hold on to their deen? Even if they hold on because they will be the first generation, will the second and third generation live with Islam and the Surah will also they become completely absorbed, assimilated as we call into this country and into the Western secular, materialistic, capitalistic country of this world. Today when I look back in remnants of those years, I can say, like Allah Shahid, in this house of Allah, that seeing what I'm seeing from east to west, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks going to the north, to Cairns, and that part of where the sea has dropped there and something is growing, beautiful trees growing there. Islam is here to stay, inshallah. Inshallah. With this kind of a community that is settled down here, inshallah, Islam will not become extinct here. We will not just be written in the books of history of people who came here, that was the end of it. Anyway, there are two currents. I just wish to over limited time, my flight is also, I don't have very much time. You will hear a lot from Mufti Saab, inshallah, from UK, and you have heard so much, mashallah, with regard from our students. But I thought I'd just have my little contribution and share. I don't know if I'll come back ever. At this age, you don't have much hope. Each time I come here and I go back and say, I'm giving this amanat to you. This message is an amanat. Please take that as an amanat. If I don't see you again in the world to repeat this message in another time that I come here, then inshallah, not in a world we'll meet up in Jannah. Bear witness that on a day of Qiyamah we will have no excuse in front of Allah Ta'ala that we came to settle down here and we didn't make fikr for deen and didn't do the work of da'wah and didn't practice on Islam because the conditions weren't conducive. There were no, my time there were no halal butchers. They couldn't eat the food even as come in Ramzan. I should worry and tell people, make up a story and say I'm a vegetarian. I can't eat meat, I can only eat vegetables. All these, that was the condition. And Allah Akbar, today, that one current, and there's two currents I want to talk about. One is that current that I saw in the 80s, when I became associated here, and then in the mid-80s came and settled down here. The establishment of institutions in the form of Islamic secular institutions, I use the word Islamic, in the form of Islamic schools. That was one development that started taking place here. Would masajid coming from? The initial stage, I only saw one masjid where I stayed, that was the Perth Mosque, William Street. And of course there were two musallas that later on became, mashallah, the first two other masjid, the Kenny Masjid and the, mashallah, the Godri Masjid. The fact of it, today, mashallah, we can boast between 20 to 30 masajid alone, besides the musallas. How much have we grown? That's why we started the ayat of the Quran Kareem in front of you, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Show appreciation and gratitude to Allah. And you have come, many of you were not here, that the world that I am talking about, of the 80s, you were not in this country. You came at a much later stage. There's just one, two faces I can see in front of me who has served Islam. Three I visited yesterday, which I make a point each time I come here, who served the masjid in William Street, our Imam, ex-Imam, who is now in the old age home. The founder of the AIC, Haj Abdullah, who is not in a good state at the moment. Haj Fadluddin Parker was also one of those who used to go around from house to house. Haj Abu Bakr was sitting here. They are the few old faces. There are very few of those who I could relate to in that time, who were contributing when there were no masajid around, no madaris around, no makatib around, no Tahfiz Plaza, and no Darul like what we have here now. So that was one development of the 80s, and that was going, but it was taking us towards another development, another current that would come. The seed had been being planted through those students that were going through those institutions of our Islamic institutions, where they could at least get Islamic education for 5 days a week from Monday to Friday. They could learn Quran from year 1 right up to year 12. All those little things that were just humble efforts in those days through these institutions. May Allah Ta'ala reward all those people who make that possible. I strongly believe it was not for those institutions, those Islamic institutions in the form of these Islamic schools that have been established today, are there more than one, alhamdulillah, that became the foreigners in the sense of these Darul Ulum. Then I come to the 90 decade, the decades of the 90s. From there onwards, another development started taking place. Of course, don't forget the aspect of Dawat and Tabligh. That had always been there to protect the deen and iman and the identity of the Muslims in this country, specifically and generally throughout the world. We can never overlook that, the effort that has made this possible. That wherever this effort, then alhamdulillah, the other branches of Islam started, the seeds started germinating, and they started going. The second current, which was in the middle of the 90s, started taking place when now Maktab started. This is one of those, Ibrahim, which is now a Darul Ulum, full-fledged Darul Ulum, but just started with a small Maktab. That evolved and gradually went in and became, from that we got students, they got students for the Tahfiz. And gradually many of those who are sitting here passed through that, and mashallah, they are sitting there. So today where we are at 2024, in the sense of where we are as a community, now I'm just focusing specifically on Perth, which was my home, second home. It's subhanallah, all praise for Allah, alhamdu wal minna, that Allah is showing us, those that have come after that, in the decades of the 90s and the 2000s, you got a very, very ready-made situation here that alhamdulillah, you didn't look for masajid, somewhere around close to you in masajid, halal food and halal meat, and butchers came about. So many other Islamic schools came about, so we didn't have to worry now. Our children will go to secular schools, state schools, Christian private schools, and what will happen to their iman. That situation is gone now. The fact of the matter is that Alhamdulillah, I want you to appreciate what you have got. Because Allah warns us, informs us that if you make shukr to Allah, grateful to Allah for what has come, then we will increase in that damage. There will be more masajid, there will be more Islamic schools, there will be more tahfiz classes, there will be more Darul Ulum, there will be more scholars. So many, mashallah. The seeds are falling. Last night we were in a jalsa where alhamdulillah 2 students completed there. That is an extension of Masjid Ibrahim in the north in Handybrook, mashallah. The 2 that graduated 1-2 years ago, Maulana Isa and Maulana Mutir Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that seed fell right, we referred to as a jungle at that time. That's a far end of Perth. After that you put this jungle and trees and kangaroos and whatever Australia has in a form of the marsupials in. The fact of the matter is that, look at it. Here we are in the south, last time we were there in the north, celebrating, mashallah, the graduation of 2 young boys, 10, 11 and 12, alhamdulillah. Can I see you say alhamdulillah? Alhamdulillah. Now the idea is the second part of the ayat. وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. Kafirtum here in the word kafir in the Quran is meaning in 2 meanings. One is kufr as against iman. Iman and kufr, that you all understand. Believer, disbeliever. But kufr is also used in the Quran in the sense of ingratitude. Not appreciating what Allah has given to you, that I'm a mu'min, I'm a Muslim. I've just taken myself for granted. I underestimate my own worth in this, in the world and my existence. I've come here to Australia to settle down for greener pastures and for better standard of life. But surely don't be deceived to think it's a better quality of life. Better quality of life doesn't come with material things, worldly things, bigger house, bigger car. All of these kind of things are just material. All of that we have to leave, or it will leave us in our lifetime, Allah knows. The fact of the matter is that the thing that we are warning this ayat is that don't take the ni'mat of Iman, Islam, Deen, Hidayat which Allah Ta'ala has given to you for granted. You have been put here to live by Islam. That's why Allah transferred your risk. So many others wanted to come here, they didn't get visas to come and settle down here. Allah wanted that we could come and settle here, and not only settle here, but live here as Muslims. Introduce Islam through the line of Dawat, and that Dawat through what? Not through speech and talking, but through our amal. Amal is salihah, good actions. And through akhlaq hasana, good morals and good conduct. So these people who have come and settled around the non-Muslims, if we forget these lessons, and we think we've just come here for better standard of life, then there is no difference, sorry to say, between us and the non-Muslims who are living here. Only thing we believe, alhamdulillah, we are first generation, that we are Muslims, alhamdulillah, we recite kalimat tayyibah, la ilaha illallah, we have Muhammad, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But just living with that, and being contented with that and happy with that, that is the danger. That is that what taken for granted. That is what is ingratitude. That is why I come to the second part. My 2 messages started from the time I landed on the shores of this country in 1980 or 81. And as I'm leaving the shores again at 2024, that live with Islam and Dawat. Iman and Islam for yourself, Dawat through your amal and ahmal salihah and akhlaq hasana, through people who you come into interact with among the non-Muslims in the corporate world, in the factories, wherever you are working, they must see the true Islam. It's all there in the libraries, it's all there, on social media. The world wants to see the true practical Muslims. And we are going to be the one who will be able to project that image of Quran and Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Number 2 comes the second part, which I've been harping on all the time and talking like a broken record with regard to education of your children. Talim of Allah, referring to secular education, you know all about that. If my son's got a degree and he's in Netherlands or he's in Curtin or wherever he is, he'll become something here and he'll make a success of his worldly life. That's good. But even the non-Muslims are doing. We encourage you. We don't discourage you from that. We want Muslims, al-mu'min al-qawi khayrun min mu'min al-dhaif. A strong Muslim is better than a weak Muslim. That goes with Iman, Islam, Deen, politics, economics, all of those things. We need to be on the top from the dunya point of view. But we will be only on the top from the dunya point of view if you hold fast to the Deen. The Ummah al-Muslimah was, before I come to Ummah al-Muslimah, the non-Muslims who had become the heirs of the distorted books and chains, they were backwards because they were holding on to their spiritual books, which were all distorted and changed. When Europe decided to progress forward, they had to put their Bible behind. They had to put religions behind. Declare themselves as secularists. The religion is not part of this thing. Don't bring religion. And then the French Revolution takes place, and the period of Renaissance takes place, and Enlightenment takes place. All that. Leave the religion for Sunday or for Saturday. So when they put religion behind, they progress. The Muslims are ahead and on the top, as long as they held on to Deen, onto the Quran Kareem and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were on the top and we're going. We have the history of Cordoba and Spain and Baghdad and all that. That's our glorious period. But when we left the Quran, we became materialistic and dunya became our focus, which Rasulullah feared. I don't fear on this ummah poverty, but when they will be poor, they will still turn to Allah and dua. What I fear upon the ummah is the fact that the dunya opens up to them, and then they run behind the dunya, prosperity, material things, accumulation of all these things, and that becomes the cause of them drifting from Deen. And with the result, that is what has happened to the ummah over a period of time. The ummah started falling back and drifting far from Deen. But now look at this condition. The giant called Australia is awakening. It's an awakening here in the sense of what we are seeing now, from east to west, from south to north. And inshallah, we want you to be part of this, inshallah, contributing towards this as ordinary lay people. When the masjid needed, the madrasa needed, their school, Islamic school needed, contribute and support and become involved. If you become involved in the work of Deen, you will lead a life of respect and dignity in this country. Allah forbid, if you go towards materialism and just look after yourself and your own comfort, the danger is that you drift. You still maybe live with Iman. The danger is of your children. If somehow they just survive, what will happen to your grandchildren? Think about it. Take this message of mine as an amanat, maybe the last farewell message to you, that, don't say it was not said to us. MashaAllah, with the products that we are producing by the grace of Allah, you look at Sydney, the big centers and Islamic centers and Darul that are running there, where the Hifz classes run into hundreds and 200s. Big numbers. And they are doing well there. We into a smaller city, more isolated city from the rest of Australia. But if it is happening here, the ground is so fertile that from that we are seeing this is the third or fourth graduation. Alhamdulillah, we are going to, I have a chance to witness, and I make shukr to Allah Ta'ala that He gave me this chance once more to come back here and to be able to witness this manifestation of this miracle. And mashallah, the graduation of these 4 ulama. May inshallah the Shajara Tayyibah, as it is called, the beautiful tree of Deen and Islam, of Quran and Hadith and Sunnah, flourish and grow inshallah, and may its branches spread out throughout not only this country, but we become of those that already, shukr alhamdulillah, I'm sure they say, I could say about Perth, being in Victoria, I know that we are now become more or less self-sufficient, in the sense that we don't need to bring hafizas from outside anymore. Why? You've got enough hafizas here, Allah shukr, we become. The thing I have to say is that you look on any Australian product, Australian made and proud of it. That's what you are, mashallah. Australian made, you're proud. You will serve Islam with that dedication and that feeling and sincerity with which our Mawlana Arifur Rahman just spoke about. That you are seeing the life, the practical life of these Asatiza, the Qurbani and the sacrifice they have given, that how they took you through the 7 years, through your whole mission of Ta'lim. MashaAllah, you're not only learning words and information from them, they learned it from their Ustad. It's an unbroken, authentic chain up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From the Sahaba, and Tabi'in, the Tabi'in, the Muhaddithin, the Mufassirin, Aymat al-Mujtahidin, all that. not only their teachings that have been preserved in books, but alhamdulillah, their beautiful lives by way of their akhlaq, by way of their amal hasana, by way of their taqwa and piety. So imbibe from that and take from that, inshallah, Aziz, I wish this institution every success, alhamdulillah, is so close to my heart. May Allah reward the people who, when they came to this country, Allah bless them with wealth, that they put their money in. They say, you put your money where your mouth is, and they establish something like this, which we should call Masjid Ibrahim and Darul Ulum, mashallah. I can say much more, but I hope I have been able to reach you. With regard to the general public who is sitting here, education of your children, you cannot make them hafiz and alim. That is the highest, that's the ritual. That please make sure that they take advantage of that. Existing institutions in the form of Islamic school are protected from the kufr environment and influence of kufr outside. Allah save them, and they can be able, from there then we can get our, the feeder for our higher institutions of learning. So inshallah, will all of us take the message seriously, inshallah. I just like to apologize for my little longer effort, but I had to give you a breakdown. For those who are living there, remember you have come good times, take advantage. وفقنا الله وإياكم بتوفيق الله إن نريد إلا الإصلاح ما استطعت وما توفيقي إلا بالله عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله جزاكم الله خيرا بارك الله فيكم.
Jazakumullah khair to Mullah Abbas. Indeed, it's a great honor always to have Sheikh Mullah Abbas on the scene of our class. So when I come, let's make this speak for a few minutes. Very heavy, somewhere or two. Mullah Raheem, inshallah, after a few minutes. Inshallah, so we have lots of Mullah's apology as we don't apologize on behalf of this. Inshallah, we just move on very quickly. I'm just going to give you a very quick 3 or 4 minutes report. When we entered, we would have found
switch off YouTube and turn it back on a bit.
So inshallah, we can go